Well, good morning and happy Sabbath. I am so glad to be here this morning to talk with you guys. So when they asked me to do children's story, one of the things they asked me to do was talk about our religious history. And in reading the Great Controversy, I realized that our history started even further back than 1844 when we were founded as an Adventist church. It has gone on for a really long time. And so the story that I'm going to bring to you this week is actually about when America was first becoming a country. Now, I don't know if you guys know, but when America was first becoming a country, the whole country was basically just wilderness. And there were Indians here, but beyond that, there really wasn't a lot. There was just a lot of forest and trees and animals and things like that, but there wasn't very many people like there are now. And so people were coming here and they were forming something called colonies. Little communities were starting to grow. And people were coming here in a large part for religious freedom, because in other countries, they would tell them, you can't worship this way, you can't worship that way, you have to go to our church here, and they wanted to worship God the way that they were reading in the Bible. And so that was why they were coming to America. Well, about 11 years after they started forming these colonies and people started coming over, there was a guy named Roger Williams that came over. And he was a clergyman. That means that he was like a pastor. And he came over exactly for that reason, exactly because he wanted to have religious liberty, religious freedom, the freedom to be able to decide how he was going to serve God. Well, he got over here and he discovered something that really surprised him. He discovered that even here in the colonies that they were telling people that they had to go to the parish church, that you could be fined or even thrown in jail if you wouldn't go to the church that they had established. And he said, no. He said, this isn't right. That's not right at all. We are supposed to be free to choose when and whom we're going to serve. In fact, what he would say to drag the public, let me start over with that. To drag to public worship the irreligious and the unwilling seems like it doesn't do anything but force hypocrisy. Now, hypocrisy is a big word, but what it means is to do something that you don't believe in, especially for serving God, to serve God and then live the rest of the way you want the rest of the time. That's just being a hypocrite. Because when we serve God, we want to serve Him all the time, right? Anyway, so he believed in this so strongly that we needed to have our religious freedom, the freedom to serve God however we wanted to, that he stood up against the whole colony and said, this isn't right. And you know what they did? They kicked him out of town. And that was a big deal because there wasn't another town to go to. He had to go and live in the forest all by himself in the wintertime. And he was living in a hollowed out tree, and it was really, really hard. But he believed so much in doing the right thing and in standing up for what he believed in that he was willing to endure all of that. Can you imagine? Can you imagine going and being there in the cold and in the wintertime all alone in the forest? I just can't even imagine it. Anyway, after a period of time, he was able to actually go and be with some Indians that he'd been reaching out to try to teach them the gospel. And eventually he went on to form his own colony. And in that colony, everybody had complete freedom to choose how they were going to serve God, to choose whether or not they were going to serve God. And that was actually what we call Rhode Island, the whole state. And then that idea caught on, And that's why now, today, in this country, we have religious liberty. But you guys, I want you to understand how precious this is and exactly how much we should, just like he, stand up for the things that are right. We have to stand for what's right, even if nobody else is willing to stand with us, even if it means horrible consequences. We have to stand up for what's right all the time. And so that's the main thing I wanted you guys to learn this morning and to get across, is just how important it is for us to stand up for the truth, and just how important it is to stand up for the truth, not just for ourselves, but for everybody. And because he was willing to stand up, I personally believe that that's one of the reasons why we have religious freedom in this country today, was because he was willing to stand up all alone, all by himself. So you guys remember that. Even if you're all alone, you're never really alone, right? Because Jesus is with you. And Jesus was with him and took care of him even while he was there in the forest, in the cold and snow, all by himself. So I want you guys to have a really happy Sabbath, and just know that Jesus is with you and that you can always, always stand up for what's right. Bye.